So my guest today is Carolyn Brown, who you'll discover is not from Brooklyn, New York, with an unusual accent. Carolyn is someone who's been in recruiting for a long time and is hosting lots of LinkedIn Lives. And we're going to be talking about what she's learned from doing all these LinkedIn Lives with regard to networking. Carolyn, welcome. And please
Thanks,
introduce
Jeff.
yourself to my audience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. So I'm down under and probably down in the down under. So I'm based down in Melbourne in Australia. And so yes, you're right. I've been in recruitment for a long time, but about 15 years ago, I flipped my career and I escaped the corporate world and I decided to set up my own consultancy, Interview IQ. So from that point on, I've been helping people find jobs. So working on resumes, LinkedIn profiles, interview coaching. I run a straight to shortlist challenge, helping people learn how to network and approach people directly for jobs and bypass recruiters. And yeah, so from March this year, from mid-March this year, I've been doing a daily LinkedIn Live with a co-host, Neshad Gadani. And we decided that we would be very present for people during a really terrible time, during lockdown and people losing jobs, and talk all stuff careers. So that's what I've been doing daily, every day at 3 o'clock, every weekday at 3 o'clock.
And that's Melbourne time, of course.
Melbourne time, yes. So it's probably some hideous hour on your side of the world. And from time to time we do, we've had quite a few guests from the States. So sometimes we've done 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night our time. So we've had guests from all over the world actually, which has been pretty amazing.
Very gracious of you to accommodate the rest of the world on your schedule. And
I'm used to it.
And first of all, I want to start by saying I am very envious that you've had access to LinkedIn Live. I've been pleading with them for the longest time. After all, I'm a guy with more than 6,000 videos on YouTube, you know, the #1 podcast and Apple podcast for job search. I'd switch all my YouTube work over to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But they've yet to, I've said this to them, but they have yet to bless me for having access to LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, well, you know, the weird thing, Jeff, is that they originally gave, we do it via Neshad Gadani, he's my co-host, so we do via his stream. But they gave me LinkedIn Live and then they took it away from me because I didn't use it. So I had access for a few weeks and then I went to go to use it and I'm like, oh, I don't have access anymore. So it is in beta form, so I guess, but I think it'd just be, they would be overwhelmed if they released it out to everybody, but you sound like you've definitely got a worthy cause to get it. So.
Yeah, I agree. And let's start talking to folks about lessons that you've learned about networking from running these LinkedIn Lives. So what would you say your first lesson is?
Well, I think you've got to make it a habit. And I procrastinated for such a long time about doing video and, you know, I'm an intermittent blogger and I've always chastised myself for like not blogging regularly. But when the pandemic hit, it was like, I've got to do something. And the biggest lesson was if you make it a habit, you do it. It's no harder than actually just making it a habit. So for the first 1.5 hours or 2 hours of my workday, I don't schedule anything else except working on what we're going to be putting up on the show and marketing the show and that type of thing. So yeah, just to schedule it is probably my #1 takeaway. If you're going to network, schedule the time. Otherwise it won't happen because it's always an investment. It's a future investment. It's not something that pays immediate rewards.
And folks, I'm going to interject here and simply say, not only when you're job hunting should you be making it the habit, it's when you're not job hunting that you make it the habit, because otherwise you're pretty invisible.
Yeah.
And then no one knows about you, and then you need some help, and then you're scrambling, and no one's going to do it when you're desperate.
Yeah, exactly.
So
but also, you know, it's the thing that because not everybody says yes, right? If you think about networking, reaching out to people, not everybody says yes. So it actually takes a long time to really build up a solid network. So you're way behind the 8 ball if you start when you absolutely need to do it, basically.
Oh yeah, and it's way too late at that point.
Yeah,
You come across as the desperate person.
absolutely.
And whether it's in dating or in job hunting,
Yes.
no one likes desperate people under those
You can
conditions.
smell it a mile off. Yeah. Yeah. And also it's kind of thing too, you know, that there's that saying of like give before you need, right? So you're very needy when, you know, people can smell that kind of neediness. So the thing about doing, say, the LinkedIn Lives is that we're not asking anything of anyone except for their time to appear. Do you know? And but there's benefit in that for them. Like, you know, I'm appearing on your podcast and your video. There's a benefit to me, but you're, you know, so a lot of people say yes, but you know, when you're reaching out for a job, then you can expect a lot of people to say no or just ignore you, basically.
And most of you senior people know this,
Mm.
that this is something that has to be part of your efforts on an ongoing basis.
Mm.
And when you don't have the habit, particularly when you're senior, it comes back to haunt you.
Mm.
And I know there's one person I've been coaching. I've been working with him for a year. He'd been out of work for a long time as a consultant. He and his wife are moving to the West Coast of the United States. And through his networking, he got an introduction to someone who's very well known in the risk management world.
Mm.
And he's had weekly phone calls with this man for probably 6 months
Mm.
as that fellow starts to figure out whether he's worth having the relationship with, what he
Mm.
really knows, and whether he's substantial enough. And now they're
Mm.
going to collaborate on a paper together. And the paper is going to become a huge calling card for him because
Mm.
the other man is the well-known individual in the space. The guy I'm working with is not. And
Mm.
thus, it's suddenly going to allow him to have, you know, increased branding, reputation, and
Mm.
visibility, all because of his association with the other. So
Mm.
folks, don't waste time. Just get into
Mm.
the mix of things and don't worry about whether or not people respond to you right away.
Mm.
Sometimes
You
it
can
takes six
definitely
months to.
expect it. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you can definitely expect a non-response. So with the Straight to Shortlist challenge that I do, I say to people, so we reach out to people cold. So, you know, accepting that most people won't network before they need to is why I started this. And so I say to people, when you're reaching out to people, expect about a 25% yes rate for a complete stranger that you don't know to say yes to meeting you. And that, you know, puts it into perspective for people and they don't take it so personally. But yeah, it isn't, you know, it is the hard effort, I think, to start completely cold and then reach out and try and build that warm relationship from zero.
Agreed. And the funny thing is, folks, when you hear 25% response, some of you, I'm sure, are gasping, but I'll remind you, how many are you responding to?
Exactly. No, it's so true. It's like, it's so true. And I've done lots and lots and lots of outreach. Generally, I say to people, it's kind of like a shape your expectation thing. I say expect a 25%, but you can get up to 50 or 60%.
Yes.
So it's so people don't take the no's so personally, and keep trying. So yeah, it's a bit of a psychological thing that I do with the challenge.
So number one is make it a habit.
Yeah.
What would you say the second thing is that you've learned from your networking, about networking through doing LinkedIn Lives?
Well, LinkedIn Live's pretty brutal and pretty raw, right? So you just jump on at 3:00 or whatever time. And so we've had, you know, screen fuzzies, people drop out, bad whatever. But I've learned that it's fun. Like, because a lot of people won't put themselves in that spotlight. But I've learned it doesn't matter if stuff goes wrong. I've learned that it's fun, and there's so many people out there that have got great stories to tell and really fantastic insights for people. So yeah, you can actually enjoy that opportunity to interact with people that you don't know. And that's what I discovered about myself. It's like, I think I was avoiding doing it because in my mind I was thinking it's not going to be fun. but it actually has been a whole lot of fun. So,
Did you make the mistake of thinking you were supposed to be professional?
oh, that's right. Yeah. I'm Australian. How can I be professional? Seriously.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. I mean, we are professional, but the mistakes happen, right? And that's just what happens. So people haven't been perfect. We've had guests on that have talked probably too much like I'm doing and lost track of what they're saying. But it's been fun. I have to say that this part of being locked down at the bottom of the world, we've reached out to a global audience, and it's been fun.
And one thing I'll say, folks, that most of you think networking is pretty tedious stuff. And you will learn a lot if you just act curious and ask questions and invite people to teach you what it's like being them, doing what they do. And initially, you may sense a degree of apprehension because they're waiting for the other shoe to drop of, okay, when are they going to ask me about a job? But the reality is, if you focus on being curious about them and learning from them, you will do so much better with your networking than if you say, hi, how are you? You know about any jobs? No one's going to tell you about a job under those circumstances. Enjoy yourself, learn something. That's what I try and do in these interviews, is learn something from my guest. It works wonders.
It's a funny thing, because I always say, and we've done this on our show, but I always say to people when we go through that networking conversation is, you've just got to start with a great opening question. Like, you need to explain why you've selected them and why they're really interesting. But start with a great opening question around, what do you love about what you do? I'm curious about what you do, and I'm curious about what you love. And it's kind of like the hit go question. And once people get talking, it turns into this conversation. And I think if you had a great curious conversation, inevitably people say, what are you? You want them to say, what are you looking to do next? Do you know what I mean? You don't want to be pushing that. And if you have that great and curious conversation where they've done most of the talking, that does come up. You don't need to actually push it so much, because they've felt heard and respected and valued and that type of thing.
One of the things I teach people about interviewing is when you discover that they're doing most of the talking, one of the secrets when I was doing recruiting is the more they talk, the more they like you.
Exactly. So I'm really liking you now, Jeff. So.
There you have it. I've proven it yet again.
Exactly.
And we're laughing about it, but it's human nature. Because part of this is, although we're over Zoom, we've never physically met. We've spoken once before. Folks, I do a pre-interview before to make sure that anyone I bring on is not a psychopath. And if they are, they're at least a fun psychopath.
That's right. I'm a psychopath who can string a sentence together. I think that's probably...
I can work with that.
Okay. Don't use that as your intro line, please.
No, it's probably not a good one. But when someone's messaging someone, what do they say in the message to try and get that connection to even have the conversation?
Well, I think the important thing is if, for example, I'm talking LinkedIn now, the important thing is to message. A lot of people don't, right? So if you're a complete stranger and you've got another complete stranger reaching out to you, they don't want to have to guess why. So basically, it's usually along the lines of, hi, really interested in your profile, that you've got this experience. I've got that experience as well. I'd love to connect. And sometimes we say, and seek some advice from you, or career advice. And some of those messages have come back like that, literally that 300 character message on LinkedIn, with that, like to seek some advice or some career advice. Some people have just responded to that and said, sure, do you want to have it, what would you like to know? But it basically then frames up the fact that then you're going to be reaching out if they say yes. And actually in that email, we do like a follow-up email. So it leads them to expect that, something like that from the next, the next email is a logical conversation, basically.
So if I heard you correctly, the idea is through LinkedIn,
Yeah,
you're sending a connection request that
yeah.
explains that, our profiles are similar, and I'd like to, ask you for some advice. Are
Yeah.
you also suggesting they look to people more senior than they, who might have
Um,
followed that career path?
it
To get
really depends on the person. So, for example, I have a lot of people that are skilled migrants that come to work with me in Australia. So I look for people who have an affinity, right? So if you're an Indian coming to Melbourne and you're a business analyst, we look on LinkedIn for other Indians in Melbourne that are in the same profession. And so that person's at the same, generally at the same level, or might be one above. Um, Generally go, like as a general rule, for peers or somebody one level above. But we also seek out people that I call hubs. So people that you can see that they're visibly connected and into networking, and they might be a leader of a group, they might have a blog, they might have a meetup group. Um, so they may not necessarily be in your, like doing the same role or one above, but they've got a real interest in having a presence and being a connector in the industry, because that's what they do. And those people are absolute gold. We've had so many people that have just come back and said, oh wow, that meeting was fantastic. They talked about what they're up to, they were happy to give advice, and so forth. So
I'm going to
yeah.
translate one or two things that you said for the U.S. audience.
Oh, okay.
Skilled migrants, translated legal aliens, legal
Okay.
immigrants to the United States. Uh,
Yeah, okay. It's funny that.
Indian,
Yeah, I didn't.
in the
Yeah.
United States, we might not use that direct a term, but in
Mm,
other countries, there's no issue with that. So
yeah. Okay.
recognize, folks, there's cultural differences in
Yeah.
communication style, and don't immediately jump down, Carolyn, about using terms that you're not comfortable with in the US, but
Mm,
in other nationalities and other nations, they are. Okay?
okay. I had no idea that was something that you wouldn't say, I guess.
Well,
So,
in the United States, we also deal with the Native Americans, who were also called Indians at
okay.
that time, because initially Columbus thought he arrived in India.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I was speaking from people from India, Pakistan, China. That's what I meant by that. So,
Of course,
yeah,
I know
yeah,
that, but again, for the U.S. audience, if
yeah.
anyone's, has their suddenly, I
Mm,
just want to translate that in other cultures, it's perfectly normal.
yeah.
So we've covered a couple of things so far. We've spoken about making networking a habit. It's fun. Looking looking for hubs, how you reach out, and do reach out through LinkedIn, and look for ways that you could be asking people for advice.
Mm.
And what else have you learned about networking through your LinkedIn live conversations? Because this is great stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about it is not to ever expect that it's like that reciprocation. I always get that word confused. Reciprocity.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Um, just because you give doesn't mean somebody will give back. I think you've got to really understand that and never ever expect that like there's been people that we've had on the show that we've built a great relationship with that have then have ignored every single email afterwards. Like, so I think that's an interesting lesson. You can't take it like just the act of giving means that some people will give back, but never expect that from when you've invested in somebody that's going to be returned. But just know that somebody will somebody will give back. It may not be the person that you're actually expecting. So you can have, for example, a great meeting with people, and then that person might ghost you. So that's all part and parcel of actually the process. So that's been a lesson for us as well. That we've had a lot of people on our show, but not everybody has responded when we've reached out again and that type of thing. So It's just the way it goes. It's not personal, but it does happen.
Right. And it's fascinating that having had that exposure, they wouldn't reply back later on. And I
Mm.
know that that happens in job hunting with networking
Mm.
too, and with a lot of regularity. But folks, I'm just going to remind you, for those of you who've seen me for a while, you've heard me say it just takes one.
Yeah.
Has to be the right one, obviously, and we don't know
Yeah.
who that's going to be. But you
Yeah.
just need that one who suddenly adopts you and looks out for you and
Yeah.
introduces you to that person who's going to be the one who wants to interview you and perhaps hire you.
Yeah.
And like I use the metaphor of dating all the time,
Yeah.
you're going to be going out on a lot of blind dates. And on those blind dates, not all of them are going to be good. Matter of fact, most of them are going to be pretty bad.
Mm.
And then you find the
Yes,
one.
you're going to be kissing the frogs, basically. Another dating metaphor. There's a lot of frogs out there, but there are a lot of princes or princesses as well, in a nice term, I guess. So, yeah, there just is, and that's the way it is. And I read some research that really resonated with me that as human beings, we're not that great at judging the reciprocal nature of friendship. So we think we might describe people as great friends, but they may not describe us as great friends. And if you think of it like that, that makes sense of the whole sort of networking or dating world as well. You just don't know. You might think you're making a terrible impression on somebody, but the act that you've turned up is enough for that person. Do you know what I mean? And then you might be thinking you're making a fabulous impression and you're not. So, yeah.
It is amazing how that works. And the parallels with dating are so remarkable. And the
Mm.
number of times you have those circumstances where you really think there's that great connection. And call me.
And then silence.
Silence.
Yeah.
Forever.
That's right. And then there's the mind games, right? Because you go, and this is a great parallel with job hunting. It's like, oh, it's me. Nobody's ever going to say yes to me. And then you stop, right? And that's the worst thing that you can do. And I actually think, I know with my clients that where we're doing the outreach to people, that the people that are most successful are the people that just push on. Like they actually do make it, going back to that habit thing, they do it. They do make a habit of it. They do set the time aside and just do it versus the stop and start. They're the people that where I think the mind games start to creep in much more easily, and it's hard for them to keep the momentum up. I don't know if you've noticed that in your work, Jeff, but
Yes,
yeah.
persistence and resilience are
Yeah.
the two key ingredients to any job search.
Mm.
Facing defeat, oh, that interview went so well, and then nothing.
Mm.
You just have to keep going out there. And
Mm.
as someone pointed out to me, who was like a boxing trainer, and he showed me how he trained one of his boxers. And he brought them in front of a mirror, and he said, "See that guy over there? Toughest opponent."
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are
Absolutely.
your own toughest opponent, folks.
Yeah.
You're the one that gives yourself all those negative messages. And most of the time, the world really isn't thinking about you at all.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
But you're talking yourself out of opportunities.
yeah.
So just keep plugging. Don't
Mm.
worry about, you didn't get that job. Just keep plugging.
Mm.
What you can control, you control, which is your own behavior.
Mm.
And from there, um, you know, if you have the marketable skills, eventually, no matter what the economy is like, even the freaking pandemic, I've been getting people hired. And early in the pandemic, when everyone was terrified, people were getting hired sight unseen, except over Zoom. So just keep plugging because that's within your control.
Mm. Can I just make another point?
Of
Might be
course you
just really
can.
interesting.
That's what a guest does. They make more points.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make one. So
Good. I
it's my
like it.
favorite bandwagon. And again, this is 101 stuff. But what I've noticed from reaching out to people on LinkedIn myself for LinkedIn Lives, but also for people that I work with, is how few people actually pay attention to what's in their LinkedIn profile, which actually makes it incredibly difficult to make a real connection. So if you're wanting, I know it sounds weird because LinkedIn's been around for, feels like centuries now, but you know, they're out of date, they're in third person, they'll have one line that speaks about their company or nothing else. It makes it, if you want people to reach out, you have to open yourself up as well, I guess is my point. So, you know, having that well crafted out LinkedIn profile is a number one thing that you can do to give to other people around networking as well. Because I don't know if it's the same in the States, but in Australia, if people knew how many times people have looked at their LinkedIn profile and thought, I won't connect with them, you can make your life a hell of a lot easier if you just paid a level of attention to it.
I was member 7653
Oh, wow.
of LinkedIn.
Okay.
I spotted it very early. I read something online and I said, sure. And
Yeah.
I joined. There was very little there, of course.
Mm.
But with time, I learned to open myself up. And I've got a great brand to attract people with the term of the big game hunter. And those people have reached out to me. But folks, as you think of your profile, I'll remind you again, you know, how will people find you? What terms will they search for in order to discover you? And thus, if you're not sure what those terms are, look at job descriptions. In the job descriptions, if you look at 10 job descriptions, 5 or 6 are going to have common terms related to what you do. Those are the ones that should be in your profile. And they're the outlier terms that maybe you use less frequently, but clearly the ones that are the dominant ones you should be using all the time. And thus, you know, that's the core, is the profile. And then from there, what you can do is more things to draw attention to yourself so that people are curious about you, whether it's writing, sharing video. Now they have LinkedIn stories. Ooh, you know, where you can have a short video recorded from your phone about something happening in your life or your day. It's, you know, it's a nice little service that they've introduced, and there's a lot more that you can do. But, you know, folks, when you're trying to be the aggressor, your resume has to be the tool that attracts. But the person who gets ahead isn't always the smartest. They don't always work the hardest. People get ahead by being alert to opportunity. And most of the time, it's external to their organization. And the way people find you is you want to be hunted by them. And your profile is the way that they do it. And as I had a conversation with an executive recruiter in the UK, and as he said, it's everyone's database now. You know, the search firms used to have these exquisite databases that they cultivated on their own, but now LinkedIn, with, as of this recording, almost 700 million people, you don't have to create your own. And
it comes down to the relationship that people have and the brand of the recruiter. And I think, you know, the recruiters are, the better ones are knowing that they need to nurture those things, you know, nurture their pipeline and that type of thing. But yeah, it is. The whole database, you think of it, the whole database as being open to, you know, you're open to being found and that type of thing. It's a funny thing, like I was just reflecting as you're saying, when I went to change my career from being in corporate to doing what I do now, I deliberately went out and crafted a profile on Google, knowing that people would Google my name, and I didn't have any background or you know, any proven skills in doing what I'm doing, but I wanted them to see that I knew what I was talking about. So I went and wrote for some organizations and some papers and made sure that I could be found on Google around that. And I think that helped me actually make that transition. And now, like 15 years on, there's no excuse not to do it, because it's so easy to put an update on LinkedIn, or even do a small blog post or a story, or get involved in a group. It's very easy to be visible. And I'm surprised still people I don't think people do enough of it.
I'm too busy. I got a job to do. I can't do that. Like, you don't commute, folks. Give it a break. You know, your commute.
Remind me not to get on the wrong side of you, Jeff.
I'm a sweetheart.
Okay.
But my podcast is no BS job search advice.
Yes.
So I'm very direct with the advice, and I call people out for their nonsense,
Yeah.
uh, and do it in a playful kind of way.
Yeah.
So I'll just simply say you do have the time. It
Mm.
doesn't take long. Like if you're going to write a blog post, I understand why you might want to craft it. But a quick story, a quick
Mm.
video that you share, even if you're sharing someone else's post,
Mm.
you know, through repeated action, you start to get seen as the expert.
Mm.
And it takes no time other than a share.
Mm.
How tough is that, folks?
Mm. Exactly. How tough. I might steal that line.
Thank you.
It's okay.
And what haven't we talked about yet that we should? As
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the other things. Okay, so I think going back to what we've done with LinkedIn Live and Career Care Package, people have found jobs and again, this is 101 stuff, but it's worthwhile reinforcing. People have found jobs from interacting in the community of comments and people that talk and whatever, that they go there 3 o'clock every day and they meet their old friends after 3 or 4 months, and people have found jobs from that process of just connecting up with other people and taking it from there basically. So I reckon if you're looking for a job right now, go and look at your professional communities that are doing, because lots and lots of people are doing these live stuff now, particularly on LinkedIn, because people have got time, and there's lots of community bubbles that are being formed around a particular area of interest. And I've certainly seen that happen from our audience and our show as well. And in fact, we had a guest, somebody who commented, who was teaching architects how to speak more clearly and communicate in English. I invited her on our show, and then she found clients in Thailand from our show. So, that whole kind of interaction, put your hand up, communicate with other people, it's a great way to start a networking relationship. And that's what we've seen, from doing the daily LinkedIn Lives.
the more visible you are, folks, the more people will get to see you as an expert. Oh, I'm not an expert. Yeah, you are. More than you give yourself credit for. And if you're not as big an expert as others, well, you're still expert at what you do. And it's a big world. It's a big country. Someone will be interested in you and your expertise.
Mm.
And the result winds up being, if no one knows about you, you're invisible. If people start to see you as the expert, as they have certainly with me and my work, and as they certainly do with you and your work, suddenly opportunities arrive in your inbox, which is what you want. If you're always the hunter reaching out, it's like, being like amongst all the other fish trying to jump on the hook. There's a lot of competition to get on that hook.
Yeah.
But if people are reaching out to you, which is really what you want, you've cut the line. And, I'm just going to use one more metaphor. When you try to get into a nightclub, you can go in through the front door where the bouncer is, the back door where someone opens it up for you, or there's a side door. And here, being visible is like the side door. You're able to get in because you're doing something that no one else is willing to do. And you have the courage to do.
And it's interesting, and with social media and LinkedIn, and I think these statistics are still relevant. About 10 years ago, I was looking at online research, and it had been done over almost from the time that the internet started, about online communities. And the statistics were that 90% of people are lurkers, so they just consume and whatever. 8% of people actually give the thumbs up or like or comment, and 2% of people are creators. And so guess who stands out the most in all of that scenario? And I think that still stands no matter what the community is. So we've had also, just on Career Care Package, we've had people that have told how they've really struggled to find a job, but what they've done is actually put themselves at the center of that community and be the expert in helping other people find jobs, and have actually found jobs themselves. And in fact, Jacob Scher, who introduced us from the Job Mob, he told that tale about that's how he started the Job Mob, was that he was looking for a job himself in Paris. So he started blogging about it and creating opportunities for himself. So, if you look at those numbers, you go, gosh, you can stand out if you're just one of the 2%. You might not be the smartest person in the room, but certainly, you've got a voice that people are actually, listening to.
Bingo. And that's what everyone should be looking for, is the opportunity to be seen, noticed, as opposed to lurking in the background, because the lurkers are the ones who have to all fight to get onto the hook. Whereas by cutting the line, and this is my favorite line cutting story. My wife and I adopted our son from Kazakhstan. And when we left Kazakhstan with him, we had to fly out by way of Moscow. And in Moscow, when you go through customs, there are thousands of people waiting to get through the official. But parents with very young children can walk to the front of any line. It's a custom. And as we arrived, there were people waving us to the front because, we clearly look like Americans. We dress differently. And, it was clear we didn't speak the language and we looked kind of puzzled. But we were being told, go to the front of the line. And we did. And we didn't have to wait behind 300 people. And that's what you're looking for, folks. You're looking for the opportunity to get to the front of the line all the time. And what Carolyn is talking about is some simple ways to network. Get yourself to the front of the line. Be advantaged so you get the results that you want fast, as opposed to it taking so long. So
and it makes it more fun. You write a blog post, or you appear on a podcast, or you have a chat with somebody on LinkedIn Live or whatever. It takes the seriousness out of it, It's just, it can be having a great conversation with a couple of friends that other people are watching or reading. And it makes it more fun than having to, be like the cold calling salesman type person.
And folks, I'll just simply say, I'm sure some of you gasped at the idea of appearing on a podcast or a YouTube video. It's really no big deal. It's really very easy. And you just find someone who hosts a show that relates to what it is that you have some degree of expertise in. You let them know you're available as a guest. And I'm sure you'll concur with this. If the person has some knowledge and can string some sentences together, hey, I'm happy to have you on. Right?
And also, a little tip around that too, Jeff, is that you want to look at people like, one of the things we done this daily. So one of the biggest headaches is finding guests. And I've been really fortunate because Nation has taken a lot of that on in terms of, he loves watching TEDx talks and reading blog posts and so forth. So look for somebody that's actually producing a lot of content, because they will be looking for guests a lot of the time. So somebody that does a podcast, whatever, once a month has probably got a bank of podcasts lined up. But people like us who are doing daily stuff, one of the big things is to find interesting guests. So make yourself interesting to a podcast or a LinkedIn Live person, and tell them why your audience would be interested in what you've got to say or share, or there's an interesting angle around that. Then you've got much more chance of actually doing it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Hey, how can people find out more about you and the work that you do? And please spell your name for them. Okay.
So you can look me up on LinkedIn. So my name is spelled Karalyn, and my surname's Brown. I think everybody knows that, but without an E. So you can look me up on LinkedIn. I have a website called interviewiq.com.au, being in Australia. And if you put the hashtag in on LinkedIn, Career Care Package will pop up on LinkedIn. You can watch past shows. We've also got a YouTube channel, Career Care Package, that you can find us on YouTube, where I'm slowly getting to upload old shows and optimize new shows. So a lot of our shows are actually there. So that's probably the easiest ways. Plus Twitter. I'm not on Facebook so much, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
And how do they find you on Twitter?
Interview IQ is my handle. Trying to get my words together. Yeah.
Handle, yes. And folks, we'll be back soon with more. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you enjoyed this show. Share it with other people if you did, because it does help discover for the show. And more importantly, it helps the people that you know find it. If you're interested in finding out more about me, if you visit my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us, you'll find, first of all, the blog has almost 10,000 posts at this point that you can watch, listen to, or read that'll help you. And in addition, if you're interested in coaching, you can schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching with me. If you just have a question, I have 2 ways that I'll answer it. First of all, if you are willing to accept a 3 to 5 minute video in return, thebiggamehunter.us/video answer is the way to get that. And the other way is a 15-minute conversation with me is thebiggamehunter.us/live. And be happy to answer your questions. Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/thebiggamehunter. Mention that you saw this. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. And lastly, I just want to remind you, be great. Take care. That will also appear on the Job Search TV app for Amazon, as well as a few weeks out, it's going to be on No BS Job Search Advice Radio. There we go. And that's what you look like. Sorry, I held it too low.
I'm doing the noddies.
Don't you worry about it. So it's going to be up in my stories. Anything I do these days, I try and do as a story as well. And how was that for you?
Yeah, thank you for making it easy. I didn't realize, I hope I don't offend people by referring to people by their nationality.
No.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out, because I wouldn't have known. Yeah.
Of course not. There's cultural differences. Like there may be terms I use in the interview that I do with you folks that may not be appropriate or may seem awkwardly languaged because it's just, it sounds like the same language, but there are different terms for different things at times. So not a problem.
Okay, cool.
It's not a problem.
No, thank you for that. Like, I really enjoyed the conversation. So, yeah, I think it'd be great to have you back on our show. And
as you can tell, I try to make it entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, we've got you next week. So, how's the book going? Have you...
Almost done. Almost done. So I'm hoping to have it done this week. If not, don't sweat it. I'll still send it. I'll send a PDF to you. Before that, I have the class now.
Regardless, we'll talk next week. And it was a framework that you wanted to.
The Ultimate Job Interview Framework.
Ultimate Job Interview Framework. Okay, cool.
And the idea behind it is really very simple.
Yeah.
Number one, it starts with an assumption that job descriptions are 80% accurate. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know how it is where you are, but normally the job description is generated when someone comes in on a Friday afternoon, gives notice, and the hiring manager calls to HR and goes, "Do you have that job description we used to hire Carolyn?" Yeah, she just gave notice. So could you get that out to our resources or our vendors or your contacts and see who you can get onto my calendar on Tuesday? No one updates these things, and they all evolve over the course of time. So the idea is I want people to understand what it is the real job is at the beginning of the interview. So they can talk about what they've done that matters to the employer, not just talk about what they've done. And that's the opening salvo. It's it's called the single best question to ask on any interview.
Oh, fantastic.
Because it's designed to give you the information at the beginning as
Yeah.
opposed to when most people find out about it, which is at the end when they say, so do you have any questions for us?
It's
Right?
like, yeah, yeah.
And they say, oh, tell me about the job. And it's too late to do anything because they've already decided.
Mm, mm,
And then from there, what I try to do is have people answer, tell me about yourself a little bit differently.
mm,
And I want them immediately connecting the dots
mm,
in answering the question, taking what they've just heard to demonstrate how they actually fit the role.
mm-hmm.
And to do all of this in 1:15.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
I believe in most cultures as an ADHD culture,
Yeah.
no one listens for very long.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is draw them in fast by letting
Yeah.
them know that you can do the job.
Yeah.
And then there's some other points, including better questions to ask at the end of the interview.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the idea behind the framework.
Yeah.
But you do most of the work at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah.
So that this way you get them engaged. Does the cartoon series Scooby-Doo have any sort of...
Yeah.
People tell me that hiring managers give them the Scooby-Doo moment. And during the
Gee.
answer of tell me about yourself, using
Yeah.
they suddenly they notice,
Exactly. It's exactly Scooby. Yeah.
and that looks great on camera, by the way.
I love it. Don't do that in interview.
They can do it, you can't.
Yeah.
But it's not hard. And certainly senior professionals love this because they recognize, first of all, that although they may have hired a lot of people, they're amateurs in the process of selling themselves on an interview.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And people blow fewer interviews when they follow this approach because most of the time people learn through trial and error, and they act like amateurs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'll send you, matter of fact, I'll send you the PDF as it is currently. There'll be a few more tweaks to it this week. It should be up next weekend with a cover, but for now, it's not quite ready, but it'll give you an idea.
Right.
And
I think with these things, then they're always not quite ready, but at some point you've got to release the baby to the world. So
agree. It's just about how it lays out on the page.
Yeah.
There's little differences. So there's a Kindle version where you have to have it as like rolling text. There's a print version where I believe certain things should be on their own page. In the rolling text version, it's about 49, 50 pages in length. In the one that'll be in print, it'll probably be 70 to 90 pages, somewhere in there, depending upon my final choices. But I'll send it to you. And this will go live probably in about 3 weeks' time. And I'll have it transcribed. And it'll first go live in video form. Then it'll go live on the OTT television show hosted by Amazon and Roku, Apple TV, and 90 some other smart sets. And then the following week it comes out as a podcast.
Yeah, lovely. Wow. All right, I better let you go because I'm conscious it's the end of your weekend. So
and it's the beginning of your workday. Thank you for making time.
And so I'll send you an invite for ours and a few questions, and I'll do that later on in the week. So